Nancy Pelosi is the most influential politician to ever hail from San Francisco. For decades, her national reputation and accomplishments were more than enough to carry her to victory, and she became a symbol of the values San Francisco has claimed for generations.
That kind of influence isn't created overnight. National political juggernauts don't just appear. As Pelosi retires, San Francisco won't be electing another legend. What made Pelosi powerful was time, leverage, and the city's willingness to invest in her leadership.
Now, as she prepares to step down, this race is a reset. San Francisco isn't choosing a finished product, it's choosing potential. Someone the city believes can grow into the role and represent San Francisco as a progressive beacon to the rest of the country.
This is Between the Fog and Fury, a podcast about San Francisco politics from an Asian American perspective. I'm your co-host, Jeremy Lee.
And I'm Michael Nguyen.
And I'm Natalie G.
Oh my gosh.
Episode 2!
Season 2, episode 2.
We just finished recording episode 1.
Yeah. So, San Francisco is about to go through an enormous change, a changing of the guards. Nancy Pelosi is going to be retiring. And this is, she's represented San Francisco since the late 80s.
Yep.
So
30-something years.
38 years.
38 years.
Yeah. So I'm just throwing it off. What do you guys think of Nancy Pelosi and her legacy here in San Francisco?
She is beloved here in San Francisco. She is my Speaker of the House forever and ever. I mean, there was that moment where she rips Donald Trump's speech, and then she just does the clap. Yeah, I mean, we had to do it, right?
Clap.
It's and then there's a picture of her like literally arguing with Donald Trump, and she is the fierce leader of our house, of our Democrats, as a party leader here in the Democratic Party. You know, she has done so much for San Francisco, so much for the party, so much. She's a prolific fundraiser, and I was so happy to be endorsed by her for the Democratic County Central Committee,
Me too.
and I got to meet her. I remember the first time I met her, I was the only progressive in that room, okay, and I sat right next to her, and she just has this like grandma vibes. It's like she was holding my hand. She's like, "It's gonna be okay," because she could sense that I had just spent like months campaigning against all these people in this room, and you know, she just got it, and she's with it, and she's just so real and so loving, and you can just feel that she just has such a deep abiding love for San Francisco and all the residents that live here.
Yeah, for me, she is iconic, right? She, whether it's a clap or it's her fashion is a political statement. Like the things that she dresses in, or like the style, right? Depending on the occasion, depending on the meaning, there's always a meaning behind that. So as a fashionista myself, I really appreciate that. But also she's fought for a lot of resources for San Francisco, right? Whether it's the Central Subway, whether it's big capital projects, whether it's making sure our U.S. Postal Service is running, right? Like she fought a lot for San Francisco on the national level. And that didn't just come overnight. That was over decades of fighting and doing the right thing.
I mean, I have to jump in with the AIDS advocacy. I mean, back in 1987, in Washington, D.C., you just did not say the word AIDS. And she came and represented San Franciscans who were dying of AIDS and were not being funded, not housed. I mean, there's all these terrible things around the AIDS crisis that were affecting the LGBTQ community, especially gay men. And you know, this whole country was just like shamed and trying to just shame gay people. And they're like, that's a gay disease. Those gays are gonna die anyway. Blah blah blah. And I'm so thankful for her leadership there, because her first speech on the floor in 1987 was about AIDS advocacy. She came from San Francisco to represent the AIDS people who are dying of AIDS and living with AIDS. That was tremendous for our community. And then her leadership with the Ryan White Care Act and so much more funding measures around housing for people living with AIDS. It would not have been possible without her leadership, and we needed that in our congressperson.
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, what Nancy Pelosi represented was absolute moral clarity. And just having a political backbone. I mean, like, she stood for gay men when they were dying of AIDS. She stood um, for just like working people and just regular folks. And no matter how big that she got, in terms of being the first female minority whip to Speaker of the House,
Yep.
she never forgot about San Francisco. She never forgot about the people here. She has always been with labor. She has always just supported working families. And, it's always hard to separate, Nancy Pelosi as the national figure from Nancy Pelosi, just the lowly member of Congress. I think one thing that we need to do is help our viewers, our listeners, really understand that separation. There's Nancy Pelosi, the juggernaut. People don't fully understand Nancy Pelosi, the member of Congress.
Who like fought for San Francisco.
Yeah.
And it's okay to like disagree with her on certain issues and things like that, right? You're never gonna agree with 100% with your elected official on different things, right? It's okay to disagree, but also, we can't diminish the work that she's done for San Francisco and all the resources that she was able to bring to San Francisco.
When you think about Nancy Pelosi, the member of Congress, what are some things that kind of stick out to you that she's delivered for specifically San Francisco?
So definitely the COVID relief funds, right? Getting those FEMA funds into San Francisco, and that helped our different neighborhoods, whether it's food insecurity, whether it's making sure people got COVID tests or got their COVID shots, things like that. It's also making sure for me, Supervisor Walton sits on the Caltrain board, and so she brought a lot of resource in to help Caltrain get electrified, the electrification. That was a huge capital project across the whole region, not just in San Francisco.
It's really improved the lives of folks who have to take Caltrain. Because remember, it used to come like every hour or something like that.
Yeah.
And with the electrification, they were able to speed up the times.
Yes.
And just on again AIDS advocacy, she worked. She was the leader to expand Medicaid eligibility to include HIV/AIDS. She is basically the architect of the Affordable Care Act, and now we need to save ACA, and we can see what's been happening with Medicaid and the fights there. She is our leader for that. We would not have housing for people with AIDS, the subsidies and securing affordable housing for folks there.
Her advocacy came at a time when, like, people didn't want to touch people with living with AIDS. People thought that you could contract AIDS by like sharing the same public restroom
Or a hug.
or a hug. And she really pushed back against that stigma.
Yeah. Just related to healthcare, like she fought to save Medicare, right? Even before the whole big ugly bill and everything, she was leading the charge to save it. And that was a campaign that happened all of last year, and like right after Donald Trump got, like, I don't even want to say his name.
Yeah, and then also she led the fights on Prop 50 here
Yeah,
just
Prop
recently.
50.
I mean,
Yes.
Prop 50 was just sort of like, I mean, Governor Newsom just kind of just made that happen, kind of, but then it was really Nancy Pelosi who came in and
Yes.
said, "Let's create a new PAC and let's like actually organize our
Yeah.
labor folks, let's organize our working families folks, and make sure that Prop 50 passes." And it has passed. And now that with the new with a congressman dying in CA1, the first district of California, congressional district, that is actually in play now, and we could regain the House more easily because of Prop 50.
Yeah,
Yes.
and just in my like line of work, we had a affordable housing project that had a funding gap, and through reaching out to Nancy Pelosi's office, they were able to secure funds to fill that gap. And so we were able to do this like really complicated tax credit deal that was able to had the funds to rehab these SRO buildings and these senior buildings, and just give people living in affordable housing just a higher quality of life, and give them the dignity that they deserve. There are three main candidates that are running to replace Nancy Pelosi. So who are those candidates?
Well, one of them is Scott Wiener, Scott Wiener used to represent District 8. District 8, by the way, I'm running for District 8 supervisor. I remember when Scott was running for supervisor, it was 2006, and that's when I first met him. He was, this really tall, lanky
20
man
years.
20 years ago, and it was the gay lawyers, because I'm a gay lawyer, and we all know each other, and it was at a holiday party. That's when I first met Scott Wiener. But yeah, he has been a long time advocate for the gay community, the LGBTQ community, the trans community especially. I'm on the Harvey Milk LGBTQ Democratic Club, and we've been able to work with him to provide trans rights legislation, create a state of refuge here in California. He's been really strong on those issues. There's a lot of other candidates too.
Yeah, there's Connie Chan, and she is the current budget chair for San Francisco and the supervisor for District 1 on the Richmond district. So I've known Connie for a really long time too, but she is the only woman in the race, the only immigrant in the race, and the only Chinese person in the race who can also, she is very fluent in Cantonese, in Mandarin, knows how to read and write, so very relatable to me. Also, she did endorse me for my race for District 4 supervisor. She has a lot of strong organizing background, strong labor ties. She is the person who fights for working people, and she has proven time and time after again that she fights for working people.
Mhm. Yeah, and then there's also a third candidate, an outsider, Saikat Chakrabarti. I'm probably butchering his name.
Yeah, he's like a centime millionaire. He made all his money from Stripe. He used to be the chief of staff
Yeah,
for
chief of staff.
AOC.
Yeah,
So
worked for
I've
Bernie, right?
worked for
Yeah,
Bernie, yeah, and has done a lot of town halls.
Mhm.
Very impressive speaker, orator.
very charismatic.
Oh yeah,
Very
definitely,
charismatic.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just go through each of these candidates one
Let's
by
go.
one. Let's start off with Scott Wiener. What do you think are Scott Wiener's strengths?
Well, he is our current state senator representing San Francisco and parts of San Mateo. He is everywhere. He's prolific. He is very strong policy wonk. Whether you like him or not, he will outwork almost anybody, it seems like. Um, he knows how to do legislation. The biggest thing that I see that he's done is kind of create this new kind of Yimby world. Yimby, if you don't know it, yes, in my backyard, he is like the Yimby god. Um, and it is, I mean, if you're just kind of looking casually, you're like, oh yeah, we need more housing. Kind of, let's break it up. Um, and he's been able to do that, and
Yeah,
so it's very impressive.
especially in a state that has been very resistant
Mhm,
to allow for more development.
mhm, mhm. I would hope that he would be very effective as a legislator, but I don't know what Congress is. Congress is a whole other world.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so he would be seen as the very, very, very left progressive from San Francisco.
Which is interesting because in San Francisco, he's seen as more of a moderate
Yeah.
force, but I guess nationally, like everyone sees San Francisco as very left.
Mhm.
For me, I think like he's done a lot of housing policies. He definitely has a lot of experience, but sometimes those housing policies are not as nuanced as I want them to be in San Francisco, especially when it comes to certain San Francisco communities.
It is undeniable the work that he's done in the housing space,
Mhm.
and it's undeniable the advocacy that he's done for queer folks. I mean, like
Mhm.
he is willing to go toe to toe with Fox News,
Yes.
with the Twitter trolls,
Yes.
and just duke it out.
Yeah. And
And
standing up for trans folks.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In this race, what do you think are Scott Wiener's weaknesses?
I mean, as prolific as a legislator that he is, he's a bit dry. He's not very inspiring. And then also, he's kind of flip-flopped now on Gaza.
Mm.
And I was there at the forum where he actually refused to answer the question, is there a genocide? And the answer is there is a genocide happening. And then later on he did kind of say that. So it's been hard to see. And as our congressman, he would be representing San Francisco interests.
The Gaza issue for Scott Wiener is probably his weakness because, like, for the longest time, it's been a genocide for more than 2 years, right? And like, he finally came around to it. And it's like because he's running, or something. I don't know, right? But like he immediately made a video after that.
This seat also demands moral clarity.
Yeah.
It demands having a backbone. Scott Wiener is Jewish and was very, very much pro-Israel, like, I think he would call himself a Zionist. And like, if you're gonna believe in that, right? Like, don't just like flip flop because you're running. Jewish voters are very upset with him, and folks that are very much in the uh, Gaza is a genocide camp. Get kind of like, yeah, you finally came around, but that's kind of too little, too late.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think like when that question was asked, like Connie and Saikat immediately answered, right?
Mhm.
And then I think there's clips out there, right?
Yep.
Scott was like he was kind of twirling his face, the paddle. So it was just like, oh, okay, that's visually, as I was in the audience for that one, so visually just seeing that was just like, okay,
Yeah, that was the one big takeaway, big viral
yeah,
moment that happened. And I'm on the Milk Club board. I was working the event, and then I actually left the event to go to the overflow bar, and when that happened, that moment was everybody erupted.
Let's move on to the next candidate,
sure,
Connie Chan.
all right.
So, yeah, you want to tell us
I
a little bit about
She's an
Connie?
immigrant, right? She moved to the U.S. in her, I think, teens, was it? From Hong Kong to Taiwan to here. She is fluent in Chinese. I think she can communicate to a lot of community out here in San Francisco, especially that Chinese community. But for me, as a Chinese American woman, I would love to see the first Chinese American representation on the Congress level for San Francisco. That is major to be able to send the first Chinese American woman to Congress. I think that's like for me, it trumps everything else.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, the Chinese community built San Francisco. Like, for nearly 200 years, we have been a fabric of this city, and we've had several elected officials. We've had a Chinese mayor, but never a Chinese congressperson.
Congressperson. Yep.
And just the to have that, to
Yeah.
have someone who grew up in San Francisco to now represent us in the halls of Congress would just be monumental.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just also, her work as budget chair, right? Wrangling the San Francisco budget is not an easy job. So major props to Connie Chan and her team for doing this. I've seen it for the last few years in person, seeing that happen. But, being able to work on the San Francisco budget and balance it, those are key skills that you take to Congress, right? In addition to a lot of the other policy stuff that they do and whatnot, it's just like she has the skills, she has the experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
What's really impressed me though about Connie, and I've worked with Connie, she's a fellow member on the Democratic County Central Committee and in our Progressive Caucus, is that she's really thoughtful around resolutions and working as much as we can work with the other side here in San Francisco, in our shades of blue.
Mhm.
But what's also impressed me is when she was at the forum telling her personal story about that. She came to this country not knowing English,
Yes.
and then now she's running to be our member of Congress to represent all of San Francisco. That is very impressive to me. It shows me she knows where she comes from. She knows her roots. She knows that we know that she will always be fighting for the working families, the working class, the people who
Yeah.
wake up at 4 in the morning and get to work by 5 and stay, maybe work double shifts. She is part of that energy of San Francisco, like the grit of San Francisco,
Yes.
that just the people who get shit done kind of
Yeah.
attitude.
Yeah.
It is quite different than the other candidates, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like, I've said this phrase a lot: moral clarity, and just like having a backbone. I think Connie is someone who, you may not like all of her positions, but she has always and consistently been on the side of working people. She has been with labor through and through. She has supported community and what the community needs and wants.
I also want to say, like, she beat billionaires twice in her elections. For her first run for supervisor, there was so much money spent against her, and she beat it. For her reelection in 2024, again, so much outside money, billionaire money coming in tax going against her, and she beat it.
Yeah.
And I think seeing that that's already like a track record, of like, who else can say they beat billionaires twice?
Yeah, and I'll add that, like, going into that election, even a lot of us on the progressive side, we thought she might be dead in the water because of redistricting. Seacliff, which used to be in District 2, was then added to Richmond. So you have this kind of wealthy conservative bloc being added to the Richmond. That plus, she had a lot of trouble messaging her stance on public safety, and that, especially during COVID when there was a lot of Asian hate, Stop Asian Hate movement. Then she came through. She outperformed her numbers in 2020.
I know. I think she's definitely a role model for me, just as an Asian woman in politics, as an Asian American woman in politics, like seeing someone who looks like me and like is able to do the work out there, like that is representation. That means a lot for me too.
Yeah, and one last thing, um, I don't think she had any ideas of jumping into this congressional. Like, I mean, maybe I'm call me a Pollyanna. I don't know, but like, I don't think she's been like planning for years to go run
think
for
so.
this. Like, I don't think it kind of just happened.
Yeah.
There was a poll that happened, and then she was polling well, and I think that started the idea. It's like maybe I should start thinking about running for Congress, and so I think the best kinds of politicians are the ones who find themselves in a position that's like, I can make some big impact here, and she could
Yeah.
be our first Chinese American
Yes.
to represent San
Yes.
Francisco. That would be really incredible.
Yes.
Yeah.
We should make this a Connie love fest. What are some challenges, or what are some negatives that Connie needs to overcome?
I'll just say that she has a very local kind of track record, right? And she's only been a supervisor, and a supervisor is at the county level. And so the difference being that Scott is a statewide office and has done a lot more statewide issues. She also will have to be strong on like her stance on where are we going to war or not, how to keep this president accountable. That to me, foreign policy. I'm curious around that. Um, I think another thing, and this is not to hate on Connie Chan at all, but I think she does kind of still feel like I'm the supervisor. So it's like there's a point where she has to say, "No, I'm your next member of Congress," and there's kind of a different way of being in that way, and I haven't quite seen that yet. I saw sparks of that.
Natalie, what are your thoughts?
I mean, at the end of the day, she's a fighter, right? And I think like, it's hard because she is still supervisor and she's doing the job of a supervisor while still running a campaign for Congress. Like, she can't step away from her job to run for Congress, right? She's still in there. And I think that's like, there's that balance. Like I'm also still working full time and running, right? It's hard. It's hard, but she's putting in the work and she's a fighter.
I agree with you that a lot of her messaging and policy, her branding is very local, and when you're going to replace Nancy Pelosi, I think you need to think a little bit bigger. Her coalition can't just be Chinese people. San Francisco is more than just Asian folks, and I want to see more messaging that relates to younger people, that relates to like energizing folks and getting them excited, and not quite seeing that yet.
Still early on, right?
Yeah,
The
definitely.
primary is in June, and then whatever happens in June, we'll figure that out. But we got one more candidate to talk about.
Yes.
Saikat Chakrabarti. Oh my gosh, I've met him now a few times, and I mean, the very thing that impresses me the most about him is just the way that he presents his presentation. And he kind of looks like a VC. He'll wear the open collar, white shirt, dark suit. He speaks really well on like policy issues that I care about, like Green New Deal, energy, freedom. Like, how do we get off of fossil fuels? How do we like really take care of our people when all this AI tech money is happening, so addressing the huge inequalities in America. And he worked for Bernie, he's worked for AOC, he's definitely in that progressive mindset.
He's very charismatic. I met him at multiple events because as a candidate, we run around, we see each other. He's a very cool dude. I haven't had a chance to sit down and actually get to know him. But I do like his stances. Like he came out really early on against the genocide that's happening, right? And I think that is really key. He does seem to have a lot of progressive roots working for AOC and Bernie and stuff. But I would love to just get to know him more.
I think he's captured a lot of that Mamdani zeitgeist. He's energized a lot of young people. He speaks to them, and I think his outsider appeal really resonates with voters, especially young voters.
Like his supporters are diehard. They're diehard for him. I see them with all the buttons, the shirts, the lip. When he's going into an event, there's like usually 5 other people with him, like which is actually very impressive. He is, I would say, of the three, the best retail politician. It's which is hard, which is hard to say out loud, but also like he just is really always engaging, and he'll be there. You know that he will be there.
Can you define what's retail politician?
It's the kind of thing where you go around and you talk to the constituents, the voters, the electorate, and you when you were talking to them, you feel like you're the only person that matters in the whole wide world, and they are giving you the most attention. He does that really well. Whether or not like that is successful in governing, I don't know, but as far as campaigning, he and just presentation, he's just very good at that.
I do like his town halls. He's been throwing town halls all around San Francisco. There was one in the Bayview, there was in the Sunset a while back ago. So I do like that he is going across different parts of San Francisco so that people can meet him and get to know him. I'd be like,
Okay, now switching gears a little bit. What about his challenges or negatives?
I think the biggest one is that doesn't have much legislation
yeah.
experience. He did work for AOC as her chief of staff, but only for like 8 months or something. Not too long. He does talk about the Green New Deal a lot, but it's like, well, did it go through? Did you pass it? Like, so like the actual legislation part. The other thing is like kind of his ties to San Francisco, and as far as understanding the political landscape. I met him a long, long, long time ago, and he kind of just like bypassed me, like, which is funny. I'm like, well, I'm on the D.C. and I know all these park club things, but he doesn't know who's who and about anything. And to be running for Congress and not know who's on the Central Committee, this is in San Francisco for the Democratic Party politics is kind of a interesting thing.
Yeah, Nana, what are your thoughts?
I mean, just like the not having that much ties to local stuff. I think like even for Nancy Pelosi before she was Congresswoman, she was the chair of the Democratic Party for California, right? From I think 1981 to 83 maybe, right? So every like Senator Wiener, Supervisor Chan, right? They all have legislative experience because they've held elected office.
All right, so I have very strong feelings about this. Um, First off, no one knows who the hell he is. Okay, like we are politicos in San Francisco. We know who's who. No one knows who he is. He has no ties or commitments or has done anything in San Francisco. Like you look at his Wikipedia, there is zero mention of San Francisco. You are coming to replace Nancy freaking Pelosi. Like she is the goat of all politicians. And you're just gonna waltz in and be like, hey, I got a crap ton of money from tech and I want to represent you. I mean, like, okay, like, I don't have anything against him as a person. Like, he seems cool. If you're gonna come in and fill the shoes of Nancy Pelosi, I should at least have an idea of what you stand for. Okay, great. Like you worked with AOC, your progressive bona fides are there. But what have you done for San Francisco?
Jeremy is being in the fury for this episode.
I am like, okay, because really, in these positions, you can be swayed by money, by power, by influence. What tells me that you will not be swayed by money, power, and influence? Because I know Connie has a track record of standing for working people, for the Chinese community. For Scott, I know he has a track record of fighting for queer folks and the gay community. And just delivering for San Francisco. I don't know anything about Saikat. Like, what is he gonna do? And what tells me that he's not gonna pull the wool over our eyes and become a snake oil salesman? I have no guarantees. It feels performative. It feels like a climber. And, like, again, nothing against him personally, but just like given the climate, given that we have all this crap going on in Minnesota, in DC, like I need someone I can trust and rely on. Like I can trust Connie. I know Scott's history. I don't know what this wild card's gonna bring with Shoika.
That's fair. But there's our theory for the episode.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the San Francisco voters will have to come and say, who do I choose to be my fighter in Congress?
Yep.
Who do I trust in those closed room deals? Who do I trust, when no one's looking?
Exactly.
Kind of like
Exactly.
what will happen for us in San Francisco?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's very valid.
I think let's move on to just kind of looking at what winning looks like for all three of these candidates. Like for Scott, what kind of coalition does he need to build to win?
Well, he needs to solidify all of the LGBTQ vote, and he needs to be delivering a very strong message that he would be the first gay congressman to represent
Yes.
San Francisco,
Yes.
which would be very powerful for our community.
Yeah.
I don't know if he's
Representation, right?
I don't know if he's quite captured that kind of zeitgeist, that fire, that the emotional part of it of politics. He would also have to inspire what half the city is renters, that he is our champion for renters. He would have to get the renters on board along with the homeowners. That would be difficult, I think, and be challenging.
Now let's look at Connie Chan.
Mhm.
What does her winning coalition look like?
Definitely the Chinese community. Right? I think like even if you're in the Chinese community and you may not agree with her on her issues, I think that representation piece, right? Just like for the LGBTQ plus community, it's representation. For Chinese community and Asian community, it's about representation. And so I think that is going to be a big voting block for Connie. I think also Connie's going to have a lot of labor support. And I think Scott also has a lot of labor support as well. I think just a coalition that she's been building as supervisor with renters, with homeowners across the city. I think that's going to be a really important play for this race. Just to also add, just people of color vote, right? The Latino community, the Black community, right? Just pulling in folks from there too.
Yeah, do you think any candidate has the Black vote or the Latino vote?
I think it's up in the air.
Yeah, I think so. It's
Yeah.
anybody's race still.
Yeah.
It seems very even.
Okay, now moving on to Shoikat. As an outsider, he doesn't have those deep connections that Senator Wiener or Supervisor Chan has. So what would his winning coalition look like?
A lot of young folks. Like I've seen a lot of folks out there campaigning, a lot of young people who, feel like the current system doesn't work. We need a completely new face.
He's coming in from the outside saying, I'm the change that we need. The current system isn't working. These establishment politicians aren't working for us.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the one with the fresh face, fresh new ideas. He was part of the Justice Democrats that elected AOC, right? So he has that background of kind of being the insurgent and coming in from the outside.
He needs to take a very similar path as Wangani. Really expanding the electorate versus, getting these kind of typical voters to come out. Troikot hasn't been elected before, doesn't have the name recognition, doesn't quite have the local bona fides.
He still comes off as green, which is like a kind of a newbie, like he feels newbie.
Yeah. Any parting thoughts before we end?
Elections are hard. So I just want to give props to anybody who's running for Congress, because one, Congress is dysfunctional, like hella dysfunction, and you are one of what 438 people, so like that's a big ass room, and to anybody who says I can be making waves, I can build coalitions, I can govern, I can do things, whatever happens. We need to have a Congress member that represents all of San Francisco.
A lot of times I feel like the working families' voices and working people voices are left out in politics. And so we really need someone to be able to bring that in, make it work on affordability issues, work on housing, right? work on investing in the people of San Francisco, in the people of the United States. Let's really invest in our people so that we can still thrive generations to come.
We're not going to be electing a fully formed juggernaut like Nancy Pelosi. We're picking our starter Pokemon. We can't pick a Charizard as much as we want. We gotta pick a Squirtle, a Charmander, or a Bulbasaur.
Yes. And then they grow into it, right? Your
Yeah.
Charmander will become a Charizard. I love your analogy, but it might become a Mega Charizard. Who knows?
Mhm.
Right? But that takes years, and then that takes development, right?
I just want Jigglypuff. I just like somebody sings to me.
All right. Favorite Pokemon. Let's go.
Yammer, because I like corgis, and just like, how could you not like the little heart butt?
I mean, I already said Jigglypuff because also she's a fighter. I don't know if this is she, but she just gives me she energy. And then just that microphone, like the microphone that turns into like a marker,
Sharpie.
a Sharpie. It's like I'm like, how dare you not listen to me? All that energy.
Shiny Gyarados.
Ooh.
Yeah, just the Dragon Engine G, and had passes where they were struggling in the
Mhm.
past, but then now they're like powerful.
Nice. All right, well, that wraps it up for episode 2. My name's Jeremy Lee,
I'm Michael Nguyen.
Natalie G.
and we'll see you next time on Between the Fog and Furies. Make sure to follow us at Fog and Fury SF.
Thanks
All
for
right,
joining us.
see ya, bye.
Bye.
Bye.